Good morning, and thank you all that are at the center. And thank you, Bob, for that wonderful introduction. Joey, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yep, we sure can. And I'm so grateful that you organized your schedule to, get around your shooting. And I'm so great between us, we organized our time. So we know what time it is in California and Chicago. Last
Right.
year at this time, we had a little bit of a glitch. So tell me, what everything's good at this end. How's everything out in California?
Everything's very good. I really can't complain. I'm back working on Criminal Minds. That's so we're going to be on Paramount Plus now. Well, I think that it's going to start airing on Thanksgiving Day this year, the first episode. In fact, they might even put that first episode on CBS just to kind of get people who were used to seeing it for 15 years on CBS the chance to, get to see that first episode. And as many things are happening in my business, there's so much streaming going on. In other words, a lot of, especially dramatic television, is moving in that direction, whether it's on Paramount Plus or Disney or Peacock or Hulu or Amazon and all these different kind of. But that's just the way of the world now, in terms of that line of work. But yeah, it's all good. The beat goes on, and
We got about a minute and a half before I feel more Zoom people will come in. So I'm
Right.
just kind of doing small talk. But one of the thoughts that came to my mind was, the new crew for Criminal Minds. We might not get into that a little bit later, but how are most of the people coming back? Are you guys got new people? How are
Yeah.
you handling that?
Yeah, no, it's pretty much intact as it was. I mean, when we finished the show almost 3 years ago, thinking that was going to be the end of it, there were 8 of us. The cast was 8, and we'd been together for a few years at that point. That particular 8 people. Of those 8, 6 of us are back full time, and then the other 2 will most likely be coming in at some point at one time or another, as well as other people from past episodes as well. So it's new, but yet it's the same, and there are different kind of parameters that make it a little different.
On that. Tell me about ensembles. I mean, you guys more like a family when you operate. It's not like a movie where you do your bit and then 2 days later maybe someone comes in. Maybe not your best friend, maybe it is. But how do you work with how does that work with an ensemble like?
Yeah, it's very much that. I mean, I think about it. I did that show for 13 years prior to now starting up again. So you can't help but be get that kind of camaraderie going. And and when it works well, which in this particular instance it does. I mean, the reason they're bringing us back is it's one of the most syndicated shows in the world. I mean, I get fan mail from China, Russia, you name it. But yeah, there's very much a strong ensemble, and we're all very, very close.
All right, I'm going to put our little show on, and I'm going to begin with a 1-minute intro. Okay.
Okay.
All right, Joey, hang in there. My kid brother is Joey Mantegna. You hear him as Joe Mantegna. He's been Joey all our lives. Guess which one he is in the left? Guess which one is playing the accordion on the right? We grew up on the West Side, a wonderful ethnic melting pot. On the far left, that photo was taken by a box camera from our second floor 2-flat, owned by Grandma and Grandpa Novelli. Totally ethnic, totally wonderful. Joey is discovered at UCLA via the Apocryphals, a group that he's on. Picture on the left, Joey's on the left. UCLA is the University of Cicero, located on Austin, which is Morton East High School. That's only one of the pieces that he did, which was Little Me, and that amazed me. And I said, hey, my brother is something special, always has been, beyond just being a pain in the ass when he was younger and when I was younger. Fast forward, you got hair, He was in the original cast of Hair in Chicago, and that's his lovely wife, Arlene, who he met in the cast of Hair. Fast forward to the Organic Theater. Fast forward to David Mamet's Glengarry Glen Ross, a collaboration that he had over a number of years that led both of them to stardom. Joey won the Tony Award on Broadway. That kickstarted his career, something special. And from there, lots of other things. So some of these we'll talk about, but these are some of the things Joey has done. Very proud of him as a brother because he's a good guy. Happens to be a good actor. That's a side issue. So interesting persons my kid brother Joey has known. And it's fun having a brother in the entertainment business. So Joey, tell us about the Martin family. I know you're tight with them. You played Dean Martin. It earned you an Emmy. Tell us about that.
Well, that was a real joy. I mean, I was a little afraid even taking the role because he was such an idol to me. But I realized, well, this is my shot. If not me, who? And so I thought, okay, I'm going to do this. And I did tons and tons of research on it. And at the time we were making the movie, what a lot of people didn't realize, some of the heirs, the Sinatra family, especially one of the daughters, she wanted to be involved in the production with HBO. I think she wanted to be a producer or something. And HBO, they didn't necessarily feel that they wanted to, they wanted to make their own movie and not necessarily do that. So she was making some comments. I think she was nervous, saying, "Oh, they're going to badmouth." It was in the press that she was saying the HBO is going to defame the great legacy of Dean Martin and Frank Sinatra and Sammy Davis Jr. and blah 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 blah, which was not true. I mean, I wouldn't have even done the project if I felt that the script was going to do that. So I took it upon myself. I had a friend who knew the Martin family, and I said to him, I said, "Can you contact them and let them know that if they want to, anybody from the family wants to call me, I'll send them the script. I'll invite them to the set just to let them know that I have such respect for Dean Martin, that's the last thing they need to worry about." Well, as it turned out, this friend contacted Dina Martin, which was Dean's daughter, and who was pretty much carried the mantle for him. In other words, she's a singer herself, an entertainer, a wonderful girl. She did contact me. And she was so taken by the fact that I offered to do that we did meet. We got to, she saw the script, she understood, she saw the film, loved the film. That picture that on the right there, that's me as Dean Martin. We shot that in Studio A at Capitol Records, which is where he really did record. And, she loves that photo because she felt that really did capture, the image of her father from an actor. And I signed it to her, and so she has that. We've become very, very close friends, as I have to other members of the family as well. In fact, I think one of the daughters is married to a Chicago writer. But anyway, I feel very good about that, having done that project, done that role. In fact, it's of all the roles I've done, it's the only one where I got both a Golden Globe and an Emmy nomination for. So I felt, at least if nothing else, the hard work I put in to try to not to become Dean Martin, but to at least emulate him enough so that people can enjoy the movie.
Yeah, and you know another singer. I know that you knew Sinatra and were part of that process too, and
Yeah.
also through his wife carried on with other ways. Even when well, tell us about that. Was he
Yeah.
My question is, was he really a tough guy or a pussycat or what?
The answer is yes, for both. I mean, it was great. I mean, I first got introduced to him through a golf tournament. I was actually in Chicago shooting the film Baby's Day Out, and this friend of mine, Tom Dreesen, you may know of him. He's a comic and also is hosted on a lot of talk shows like David Letterman.
Tom spoke at the center a few years ago.
There you go. Well,
you
Tom
had arranged that, and he did a wonderful job.
Yeah, Tom's great. And Tom was the opening act for Sinatra for about 11 years. So he was very close to Frank. And he hosted this golf tournament for Frank called the Barbara Sinatra Children's Hospital. It was the Frank Sinatra Golf Tournament, but it benefited Barbara's Children's Hospital out here in Palm Springs. So Tom, said to me, says, "Hey, you should play in this golf tournament, And so I said, wow, to meet Frank Sinatra and do all this was back in the, early 90s. I said, yeah, I'd love to do that. So I wound up starting to play in that golf tournament, got to know Frank and Barbara, which was, an incredible thrill. Then even after Frank passed, I stayed close to Barbara right up until, in fact, I visited her at her home about a week before she passed away. And she was just such a sweet individual, such a wonderful individual. I mean, first of all, to even just start a children's hospital as she did. And so, yeah, Frank had all those different sides to him, but that, that's what made him the icon that he is, incredible talent and an interesting, human being.
I gotta put in a 20-second pitch for Muscles Mantegna. Back in the day when we both were worried about the price of sirloin, we got to look at mussels, and I remember adding one element. I think it was the mushrooms, and you added the tomatoes, and we ended up with something that was pretty cool.
Right, and then
Remember that?
Barbara, they came out with a cookbook, and they asked all the different celebrities who play in the golf tournament if they would, send in a recipe. So of course I did send in that one, and I mean I think I give you credit in that one. I said this is the one that started with my brother Ron, and so if
Yep.
you get the Sinatra Celebrity Cookbook, you'll find that Muscles Mantegna recipe in there. That's right.
And it's not kosher. All right.
Yeah.
All right. This is a serious question. You've been Italian, Cuban, Jewish. How do you feel about being different ethnicities? I mean, the West Side kind of was one of the first steps of understanding it, but what's your view?
Well, I mean, look, I'm an actor and I play different roles, and my feeling is, long as you do, you do your due diligence and do your best to portray that character, and if ethnicity is a part of it, that's something you also should, be aware of and do your best so you represent that ethnic group, within the framework of what you feel would be an honest portrayal. I mean, I understand there's a lot of, especially nowadays, it's a little bit more sensitive about that. Everybody said, well, this, they probably would never be able to make a Charlie Chan movie with a non, Asian playing a role or something like that. And I get that, but I think that there has to be some flexibility in there, in the sense that that's what America is. We're a melting pot of ethnicity in the first place. So I mean, I think long as people aren't doing it for negative reasons to defame an ethnic group or something like that, that's a whole other ballgame. But in terms of playing different ethnicities, I never got cast playing a Swedish sea captain though. But I think a lot of that had to do with the way I look. That's just going to be the way it's going to go. But I've enjoyed the opportunity to play, different.
I'm kind of glad that you didn't get pegged because you had a broad range. You didn't get pegged as being a mobster, and that we went to school, you and I, with more kids of mobsters than you ever played. So that was a good thing. That was a good thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me tell the audience something quickly. The collaboration with Mammoth was special. Mammoth and Joey had a symbiotic relationship that basically started through a writer that was one of my writers that connected with her brother David and my brother Joe. And from there, they launched into what ultimately became Glengarry Glen Ross. And out of that play came the Broadway play Speed the Plow. So first, what can you tell us about doing a Broadway play with Madonna? How did you feel about it? Then I'll ask you to read what's on the bottom, but tell us how you felt about.
Well, I remember when they were talking about Cat. What had happened was this: I had done this movie House of Games, which was a film that David wrote and directed, first film he directed, and it got a lot of attention at the time. And Madonna, this was prior to the play, at least a year prior to Speed the Plow. She sends a letter to David Mamet saying, "This movie, House of Games, I love this movie. It's one of the best movies I've ever seen. If ever you would consider me in a role for anything you write, I would love that." And so, he got that letter, and the producers of the play saw that as well. David showed them the letter, and they said, well, hey, maybe she might be good for this play, Speed the Plow. And I remember they called me about that because they knew, of course, this was going to you know, she was such a huge international star at the time, as she still is today. And they were saying, you know, did I have any particular feelings about it? And what I said to them, and I still believe that, I says, look, don't cast her into play just because she's Madonna, but don't not cast her into play because she's Madonna. If you really think she's going to be good for the role and be able to bring something to it, then absolutely, I have no problem with that at all. And that's ultimately what happened. And it was a wonderful experience. We got to be good friends. Just, you know, they're going to be making a movie of her life coming up, and she called me and asked if I would. No, I'm the wrong age to play her father in this movie now, because though I knew her father, but because it's going to start with her as a little girl and bring her up through her early years. But she wanted me to just to read the part of her father in a reading they have of getting the people, which is a common thing you do when you make a movie. You get a cast together of people and you hear it. And so anyway, and then of course she invited the whole family to come see her perform just a couple of years ago here in Los Angeles, and she had to sit right in the front row with her children. So it was a wonderful experience for me, and I have nothing but respect for her.
Something happened. Read that thing. And
Yeah, well,
I found
yes,
that clip, but I'd rather you read it because no one has heard that in 30 or 40 years.
Well, this is true. We're doing the performance, and I'll paraphrase this a little bit. That we're doing one of the performances, and I have a scene with her, just her and I. It's only a 3-character play, and in this particular scene, it's just her and I. And I could see it on her face. She's looking at me with this strange, almost fear. And I thought to myself, this is odd. She's never given me this look before at this moment in the play. And then I realized there's another human being coming up behind me, and what it is a guy from the audience has jumped up on the stage and is like moving toward her. Now, I don't think he's there to do her harm, but I mean, I just think he was an over-enthused fan who just wanted to get up there and hug her or do whatever. Well, it's funny what goes through your head at a moment like that. You never know what it's going to be, but what through my head is, and this is what you wrote here, all I could think of was, this is a 3-character play and you're not in it. We don't need a 4th. So I turned around, I grabbed him, and, you know, he kind of like, he was a little in shock anyway, just, you know, the whole moment. I could see the stage-hands on the side, like, oh my God, they could see what's going on. I just kind of pushed him into the wings, and then the stage-hands, you know, took him and escorted him out. And we walked back on stage, and Madonna had a little bit of hesitation, but we got back in it. And to this day, I don't think most of the audience even understood what was going on. I think they might have thought, oh, maybe it's part of the play, some little crazy thing they do. But I think the next day, the New York Post said something like, Joe Mantegna saves Madonna's life on stage, you know. But I mean, that was typical of the Post at the time. But that's not quite the thing. But it was just another things that happen in show business, live theater, things that can happen.
All right, I got to cover this one because this one really got me, and I'll relate it. And you tell me from your view. I get a call from Mom. Okay, Mom, I don't know. She was in her late 80s at that time. And she says, you know, you got to call your brother. Almost all of our meetings was you got to call your brother. For one, she wanted to be sure that her 2 siblings were tight, and we were, but she wanted to make sure we were. Says, you got to call your brother because, you know, I always ask him ever since he got killed in that House of Games, you know, do you dress well and are you alive at the end? And he said, and she says, Ronnie, you got to call him because Joey's all excited. He got a movie. I think it's something about The Godfather. And I go, wow. He says, yeah, but I asked him, what's your part? And Ronnie, what Joey said is, you know, Mom, I dress well. I dress well.
Yeah, I couldn't give her that second line.
Yeah, well, you know, so, you know, you and Francis Ford Coppola in The Godfather 3, 4, how did you get the part?
Well, you know, I'd done a film prior, a thing called Wait Until Spring Bandini, which was based on a book by John Fante. And Coppola was a huge fan of John Fante's. And he co-produced that film. He didn't direct it, but he co-produced it. And so he already was familiar with me. I know he had seen me do Glengarry Glen Ross, the play. So there was a familiarity there. That's how I got cast. What was interesting, how I found out I got the part, though, was actually pretty funny. I knew I was up for it. I mean, but it wasn't a done deal yet. And I remember it was a Friday night, and I went to a local pizza joint by our home here in Los Angeles. And I walk in and the pizza guy looks at me and goes, Joe Mantegna, you son of a gun, you're going to be in a Godfather movie. I go, what are you talking about? He goes, you're going to be in a Godfather movie. And I said, no, I knew I was up for this role, but I'm saying, well, how do you know this? And he goes, my nephew, he works in the office in New York. He said, they just put your picture up on the wall in the casting office. Joe Mantegna playing the part of Joey Zaza, next to Al Pacino and Andy Garcia. And I run back, I go, oh, well, I don't know about this. I couldn't even believe that the pizza guy is telling me I got the role. So I run back to the house and I call my agent on the phone instantly. And he goes, oh God, I was just going to call you. I just got the call from the office saying you got the part. I says, well, great. I just found out 10 minutes ago from the guy I bought a pizza from here. So, you needn't have bothered. But anyway, that is how I got the role. And I see
and during the shooting, we know that your good buddy that you're friends for life with is Andy Garcia. But tell us about the ear. I mean, Mia, my niece is autistic, bright, brilliant, wonderful, talented, wonderful woman. But she was really young at this point. Go ahead, Joey.
Yeah, she was only about 2.5 at the time. And so if anyone who's seen the movie, there's a scene in the movie where Andy Garcia basically bites a piece of my ear off in this one scene. And so, of course, one of the great makeup artists in Hollywood, Dick Smith, built this elaborate kind of, you'd never know that it wasn't my ear, kind of this fake ear that was attached to mine, and it had a rigging on it that had a tube going around my neck. And so at the moment that happens in the film, the piece of the ear comes off and you see a little blood squirt out. I mean, it's not that gruesome, but it's realistic. So anyway, my wife and my daughter came to visit me on the set that day. We were shooting in Italy at Cinecittà Studios in Rome. And we're getting ready to shoot that scene. And so I'm all rigged up. There's no way you could tell that I have this fake ear on and all that. But my wife hands me my daughter, Mia, who was like I say, 2 years old at the time, and I'm holding her. And Mia had this kind of the propensity to, like, if you were holding her, she would grab your ear and start pulling on it. Kind of calmed her and made her feel good to do that. And all I can remember is that as I grabbed Mia and was holding her, I saw this look of horror on my wife's face saying, no, 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 no. She grabs Mia just in time before she was about to tug on my ear, because I was thinking, of course, had she not, that might have been quite a catastrophe, because here would have been my 2-year-old daughter. She'd tug on my ear, the ear would come off. She probably would have got splattered in the face with this fake blood. And who knows, that would have been a memorable
Joe,
moment.
Let's go to a horrible part that Mom hated, which was you getting shot in House of Games. And now, she's at the first half at the end of Godfather 3.
Right.
You are dressed wonderfully. And tell us about the suit.
Well, yeah, it was this one company called Very Uomo. They did all the costuming for the show, and it was so. These are this beautiful, my character. I even have a line in the thing where I say, "Yes, I know I have a bella figura." So in other words, and they say it was loosely based on
Armani.
No, I'm thinking the character was based on that New York gangster at the time who was always very well dressed. And
right.
I'm spacing on his name right now. But anyway, I was dressed very, very well, in that thing. In fact, that year they named me the best dressed, gangster, or the best dressed kind of actor in Hollywood that year, because of the outfits that I would, very expensive kind of clothes I had to wear. So that was nice.
They gave you 2 suits, and you only got to use one. Is that how that?
They sent some of the wardrobe to me, because the company, Very Uomo, said, well, you should have these clothes because they were made special for you. So I have these beautiful, very expensive suits. But they also added the one suit I got shot in, which I couldn't quite use. I open up the box and here's all these beautiful clothes, and then I get to the bottom, I go, this one looks a little rumpled. And of course, there's a bullet hole in the back of the thing, and a bullet hole in the front. I said, yeah, no, I don't think I'll be using this particular suit.
All right, serious question, and I'll ask too, really. How much do big celebs you've known share the same problems and feelings that we have? And what triggered that is our conversation about your having met Michael Jordan shortly after the death of his dad, and your conversation with him.
Yeah, yeah. I was shooting, again, I was shooting the movie Baby's Day out in Chicago, and then Michael has a big charity at the time in Chicago, and we had this big charity event at one of the hotels. And they asked me if I would MC it, if I would be the host of it, since I was in town making this movie. I said, of course. God, it was an opportunity to meet Michael, which I did at the time. Met him and his wife, and it was funny when my wife and I walked into the room and he was there with his wife. He looks at his wife and says, "You see that? He's married. You can't have him," because apparently I was his wife's favorite actor at the time. So I thought that was very sweet. But anyway, yeah, his father had just had that horrible kind of thing that happened where he was murdered by these young men who had kind of came upon him when he was kind of sleeping in his car or something like that. But I remember saying to him, I said, "Michael, I just want to let you know something." I says, "I know how badly you feel." I said, "I lost my father. I was only 23 years old when I lost my dad." I said, and I'm glad my dad got to see the last thing he saw me do before he passed away. The one thing he saw me do was my first professional job, which was hair, you know. But that was it. He passed while I was still doing that play. He never got to see my career beyond that. I said, "Your father got to see you reach the pinnacle of your your career. He saw every moment of what you were able to become from a little boy to the greatest, arguably the greatest basketball player who ever lived. So you must be able to take some comfort in that not everybody has that opportunity." And so you did, and he was very moved by that and mentioned that to me. He said, "Yeah, thank you for reminding me of that, because that is true." And I know a lot of people lose their parents for whatever reasons and don't have that opportunity to at least allow them to share in what's happened to them in their life.
Shortly after that, Joey, and when I was at Ward's, we had the Bulls as sponsors, and once a year there was a bowling deal with them, and Michael Jordan came, and there was only about 22 of 25 of us sponsors that were part of this deal. And he was sitting at a sofa signing shirts, signing whatever came by. And I got in line because I wanted to thank him because of sharing that story with him. I just wanted to say hello. I didn't want to get a signature. I never get signatures. I try to talk to the people that I've met through you and be a person with them as they are with me. But anyway, talking, I get in line, and the woman in front of me had a basketball, and in the signing the ball, Michael Jordan takes the ball and says, "Oh no, this is a Wilson. I'm only can sign Spalding's because I got contract with them, so I'm unable to sign this basketball here." And he hands it to him. It's such a nice thing. So I went up to him, and he's sitting on the sofa. And I go, "Mr. Jordan, you don't know me, but you know my brother, Joe Mantegna." And I didn't say another word. He stood up and he said, "Joe Mantegna? Oh, what a man. I love Joe Mantegna." And he says to his sidekick, this little guy that's the agent, and he goes, "This is Joe Mantegna's brother." And the sidekick goes, "Who's Joe Mantegna?" I mean, to Michael Jordan, you were someone special. And then he said, "And my wife is Joe Mantegna is his most favorite actor." I said, "That's wonderful." And he's a good guy too. So I always said highly of Michael Jordan for being a human being like that.
Yeah. I've got a picture of him and I and my wife somewhere in the office here. Yeah.
All right, you're involved with the National Memorial Day concert with another great guy, Gary Sinise. You also happen to be friends with General Miley. Without getting any state secrets, I do know your strong support of our military and first responders. And I know you're apolitical because we don't talk about that and we don't get into that. And that's a big part of my discussion groups. People are always happy to hear that Joe Mantegna is an American first. But you tell us about this involvement. You've been with this for many years, and I know how moving it is for you and for us.
Yeah, well, this coming May, it'll be my 21st year doing the National Memorial Day concert. And I brought Gary in about 18 years ago, knowing that he's just so involved with that as our military as well. I knew it would be a great fit for him and I to do it jointly, which now we've been co-hosting it together for, like I say, the last 18 years. And it's one of those things we, as you well know, Ronnie, I mean, our father spent the whole duration of World War II hospitalized with tuberculosis, where, you know, and he was, which ultimately led to his fairly early death. You know, he was in ill health most of his life. So, but we had 5 uncles that we were very close to, all 4 of our mother's brothers, and plus our dad's brother. All 5 of them were, you know, combat, you know, World War II vets. But yet they all came home, you know, they all came home. So Memorial Day wasn't necessarily that unique or special a day for us as a family, because yes, we honored the fact that it was about our military, but all our close family had those experiences and never really talked about it. But I got involved with the concert because back, it was 2002, right after 9/11, when Charles Durning, the great actor Charles Durning, who people might remember from Tootsie, played the father and many other roles. He was a Silver Star recipient in World War II. He asked me if I would come and do this Memorial Day concert with him in Washington, D.C., which I didn't even know that concert existed back in 2002. But I said, sure, Charlie, that sounds like, you know, what otherwise would I watch the Indianapolis 500, have a barbecue on Memorial Day? I'll come and do this concert. Well, little did I know, once I got there and did the concert, and my role at that concert was to get up on stage. There were 2 screens on each side of me showing planes flying into the World Trade Center from what had happened like about 6 months previously. And then the Washington Symphony Orchestra behind me is playing Mozart's Requiem. And in front of me, on the west lawn of the Capitol, are 200,000 people. This is a live concert put on by the country. And I have to read the words of 4 New York firemen who lost their sons in 9/11, and they're sitting in the front row in their dress blues with their wives. These are the parents of 4 firemen who were killed in 9/11. And it was all I could do to get through doing this thing, you know, the music playing, what's happening on the screens. And it made me realize I'm not being an actor here. I'm recounting history. I'm recounting incredible history on a par of like Pearl Harbor. And so once I got through it and I was like weak in the knees and just was so moved by the whole thing, I said to myself, this was important. This transcends anything else I do as an actor, because this is about me being the blessed person that I am to have the career that I have, because I live in this great country, which allows me to do that. And that's how I started getting involved with not just the concert, but with the military in general. And I have been very apolitical just for that reason, because the military has to be apolitical. In other words, the military has to follow the commander-in-chief, whoever it may be. And if people don't like who the commander-in-chief is in this country, then every, you know, when that happens in every occasional November, they should go out and vote for who they think should be. And if once the majority rules, you know, and hopefully things work out, you know, and that's just the way it should be. I mean, we have problems with it. It's not a perfect, obviously, we're going through tough times right now, but it's not a perfect system. But we're a young country. We're less than 300 years old. We're talking about countries that are thousands and thousands of years old. We're still an experiment, but we're an incredible experiment, because all you have to do is read the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence and realize it's all there. It's all on paper. What we're trying to do, the rules we've set, the path we're trying to follow, is the role model for any country that, you know, wants to have freedom and democracy and all those things. Right. And so for that reason, that's why I'm as active as I am with our military.
And it's something that resonates so much with our senior group, especially the individuals. We have had more World War II members in that one room that are in now today that I've ever seen before. We've honored them, and we continue to honor them. And I do know that the connection you made with those people, those 4 especially, one of the fellows I wrote a note to, I wanted to just share my grief with him. He sent me a copy of his recipe for Italian gravy. It's not sauce, folks, it's gravy. It's gravy. Right. All right, I got to share one of Mom's biggest thrills. I mean, she was happy that you had a job, so she was good that, you know, Joey, and now it was solidified, because when you did things change, she got to dance with Don Ameche. And right. That's our mother and father in the lower right. That's Tyrone Power in the upper right. And when I had a chance to talk to Don Ameche, he said to me, you know, I love your brother, but I want to tell you, he reminds me very much of Tyrone Power. And now when I talk to our kids, they don't know who Tyrone Power is, but you're talking to over 150 people here that know who Tyrone Power is. So how
Right.
was your deal with Don Ameche?
It
I
was
think you guys
fabulous.
won something out of this too.
Yes, we both won the Venice Film Festival award for Best Actor that year, which was what was very cute about it was I was doing a movie at the time and I couldn't fly to Venice because they let you know up beforehand that you won because they know it might be an inconvenience to somebody just to be there, like they would do with the Oscars where everybody's in the same room. So they let us know ahead of time, you guys won as the Venice Film Festival. Now I was doing a film, I couldn't leave, but Don went to accept for both of us. So he's in Venice, Italy. He calls me from Venice. He goes, Joe, it was a wonderful evening. We got a standing ovation at the end of the film, and the people were beautiful. He said, but I'm gonna have them ship the awards because they're little, you know, just a little too heavy to carry on the plane. And I'm thinking, I get it. I mean, you know, I figure the Oscars are usually these statues, and they're pretty heavy. And Don was in his late 70s at the time, and for him to put that in his luggage, I thought that would be asking a lot. About a week or so later, is a knock on my door, and it's a FedEx guy, and he's got one of these rolling, like a cart, like one of these big carts that move stuff, and he's got a box that comes up to my waist. I mean, it's literally, the box is about 3 feet tall, and I realize it's from Italy, and I open up the box, and inside is the award for the Venice Film Festival. And I could just think the way the Italians think, being one myself, that they probably looked at the Oscars and the Tonys and the Grammys and said, yeah, those awards are nice and cute, but we do something better. And so this Venice Film Festival award, I have it downstairs. I would bring it up, but I can't lift it. It looks like I won the Indianapolis 500. It's a loving cup. It stands about, you know, maybe over 2 feet tall, and it's brass, and it's got a malachite base. It will probably weighs about 40 pounds, and it's beautiful. It's all in Italian. It's called Coppa di Volpi, the cup of the wolf or something, because it's whatever. It's all this beautiful symbolism. Best actor, all in Italian on it. But anyway, then I understood. I said there was no way Don was going to bring this thing on the airplane. He'd have to get another seat. He'd have to get a seat for each of them.
Good to know that the Italians do it right. But Don Ameche at the cast party, he was, you know, really gracious, good guy, good guy. By the way, I want to say to the large audience that we have, I hope there's no questions, because people are listening to us and are interested in that, which is fine. But if you're, you know, chat, if you want to put your questions in chat, please do so that we can leave some time for Joe to answer that. Not now, though. All right, there's the other part. And, you know, our mom, what a wonderful woman. I mean, she had to carry so much water for both of us, with our dad being as sick as he was all his life. But he took it in stride. She took it in stride. And this is the truth. She calls me when you get the after you were on first Monday, and she was all right with that. And Joan of Arcadia, even okay with that. But now she says, you know, he's on Criminal Minds. Ronnie, you got to call your brother. Again, I get you got to call your brother. I think he's in trouble. He's only working 1 hour a week. And I said, you know, I'm not going to try to explain this to her. She sees you working 1 hour a week. So I gave you a call because she's our mom, and she said, call. And you said, no, the wolf was far from the door. We knew that. So Criminal Minds, I don't know if you want to comment on that, but tell me, when you do a series, how many hours do you need to put in for a 1 hour program that's done as well and was as well received as Criminal Minds? It's more than an hour.
Oh yeah, well, and I've been directing them as well. Some, you know, I've directed now over the 14 years I've been on the show. I've directed 10 of the episodes, and I just did one a few months ago, the 3rd episode of this current 10 we're shooting. But a typical workday in film, and our drama is probably the toughest job in Hollywood because we every it takes 8 working days, and every 8 days, as soon as one ends, you start the next one, and your average day is 12 hours. In other words, they don't even think about getting into overtime until you get into hour 13 and 14. And very often they wind up doing that because it's more cost efficient to at least stay in that, especially if you're on a location. Let's say you're on a location and you've done your 12 hours, but you still need another hour or two. They don't want to fold up and come back the next day because they'll have to pay for a whole other day, transportation, blah, 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 blah. So just yesterday, I mean, my call time yesterday was 6 a.m. I had to be on the set at 6 a.m. and I finished last night at about 7 o'clock. So we did about an hour past that 12, So we did like a 13-hour day. So it's but look, I'm not saying that as a complaint, because I still know that this is a fantasy job that I have. That there are if you took a poll of people in the world, would you like to be a television star or movie star or theater star? Even though it's long hours, I would tend to think that many people would say, "Oh yeah, I'll do that," as opposed to maybe whatever other job they have. So it's it's not all the glitz and glamour that it's made out to be. There's a lot of effort involved by lots of people.
I
But
remember
it's all I know.
I remember you told me this line. I said, tell me about acting and how you love it or what. And you said, Ronnie, I will act for nothing, but I charge them a lot of money to sit in trailers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. My line is, I'll work for free. They pay me to wait. Because especially in the film and television business, there is a lot of just kind of hanging out and waiting for the next scene. But that's
all right. You told us about Criminal Minds and what you're doing. That's going to be on Paramount. Well, you can let us know when you think that's going to happen. You're also doing Gun Stories, Lenny Bruce. Tell us about what you see on the screen.
Yeah, well, first of all, Criminal Minds will be out starting on Paramount Plus. It'll be Thanksgiving that night. You'll be able to find it, and then I think it's going to start open as a 2-hour thing. Then it'll be done weekly up to the holidays. Then we'll take a break, which is often what they do now, streaming over the holidays, and then we'll come back with the five more episodes after the New Year. Gun Stories is a show I've been doing for about 12 years on the Outdoor Channel, where we trace, and the title sounds more ominous than it is, because we're tracing historical firearms. And as you noticed here, we did one episode where we actually shot it on our grandfather's farm, which is at the town's actually Krebs, Oklahoma, which when you go there even today, the sign says Krebs, Oklahoma, Oklahoma's Little Italy, because it was this small town in Oklahoma where many Italians, and especially Sicilian immigrants, came the turn of the last century to work in the coal mines, and then with the money they made in the coal mines to buy farmland. And our grandfather was one of them. And I was very, I love the fact that we were able to shoot an episode talking about the guns of the immigrants and what they had to do to survive, back in those days. And I got to shoot our grandfather's shotgun, right there on the property. The Museum of the United States Army, yes, I was the spokesperson for the museum, which is built now. It's in Washington, D.C. at Fort Belvoir. It's the largest military museum on the planet Earth now. And it's an incredible place. It's got the history of our United States Army, starting with, pre-Revolutionary War till today. I was spokesperson for Chicago Easter Seals for quite a few years. And they were kind enough, they actually named the gymnasium and theater after my wife and I for our contributions to Easter Seals Chicago. And the play, I'm not a comedian, I'm Lenny Bruce. This is a play I've directed that's been running on and off for 5 years now. In fact, they just had a performance in Massachusetts this past weekend, and then they'll be in Pittsburgh next weekend. It's a one-man show. In that particular photo, that's Bonnie Hunt, a great Chicago actress in the center there. She was at one of the performances we did when the show was running in Chicago. We had to close it early in Chicago when COVID happened, but it's been Ronnie's done over 400 performances of it, and it's still running, as I said, today on tour.
I'm gonna take. Let me click on this. I'm gonna take this one. I know what happened on May 6th. And in the interest of time, I'm just going to say that, I got a call from the Chicago Cubs. They said, your brother's a great Chicago actor and Bleacher Bums is so popular. Do you think you could get your brother when he's in town to throw out the first ball? We're doing this year, and we are looking for celebs because Harry Carey is no longer with us. I said, wow, sure, I'll call him, and I know he's going to be in May. So I asked, after you told me what week you'd be in, I asked someone that was working with the Chicago Cubs trainer and said, hey, date should I pick? My brother's open on 4 days this week. And he says, pick May 6th. There's this new kid that's pitching. So what happens on May 6th? You and I go. You've been a baseball fan all your life. There we are watching someone else's television. That wasn't ours, I'm pretty sure. We didn't have one until it was a little bit later. But you threw out the first ball, and then we watched this kid throw 20 strikeouts. And no one remembers Joe Mantegna as the originator of the Bleacher Bums are throwing out the first ball. We know that May 6th, the record was tied and made of most number of strikeouts in a game. You remember that, Joe?
Oh, I'll never forget it. In fact, I'm in my office. I'm looking at the wall here, and I have signed baseballs in front of me, and one of them is that ball that Kerry Wood signed and dated. So I mean, I have the first pitch ball from that game, signed and dated by him, which is arguably a Hall of Fame ball when you think about it. Because that's right, he tied the record for most strikeouts in a baseball game. So it was what a thrill. I mean, and then they even that next year they sent the CD of the broadcast of the game to all the season ticket holders, and you could hear me on it because I went up and sang the 7th inning stretch song as well, and also called the 7th and 8th inning with the guys up in the booth, and you can hear me going 17, 18, all right, go Kerry, and then I went back to my seat for the end of the game, and then that was that.
Let's go quickly through some people. Tell us quickly because I want to try to get to some.
Right. Well, Peter Falk, loved him to death. We toured for 6 months together with Glengarry Glen Ross when I did the national tour after Broadway. We became the best of friends. When he was going to pass away, when he was in his last few weeks, I was the only person his wife would allow to come visit him because we were that close. And he had never gotten his star on the Walk of Fame. Not that, of course, that he didn't deserve it or they didn't. Just that you have to follow through. In other words, they'll call you and say, you've been awarded the star of the Walk of Fame. Please pick a date. And you have to do all this rigmarole. And Peter was the kind of guy like, he never got around to it. So after he had passed away, and then I realized, gee, he never gotten his. And I'd already had gotten mine, a few years prior. I went to the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce and said, look, because they'll do it posthumously. They will award stars posthumously if they've already been approved like that. And I said, let's finally do it. Let's give Peter his star, and I'll do all the paperwork and whatever needs to be done. Because there's even certain fees that are paid and stuff like that. And I went to the two networks that did Columbo initially, and then did the reruns of Columbo, and said, you guys are gonna have to pony up because we're gonna get Peter Falk star here. And of course they were happy to do it. And since he was no longer around, I talked to his wife. She said, Joe, you take care of it. You do what you think is right. So I said, if you don't mind, I'm going to have him put his star next to mine. So if you ever come out to Hollywood, you go across the street from Musso and Frank's, his famous restaurant. See, there's Peter Falk star, and then there's mine. And then, of course, I gave the speech for him in his absence.
I know you know Ringo and Johnny Mathis, but tell us only about Tony Bennett. I know that Tony Bennett you got a ringtone of him and his paintings in your house.
Yeah, Tony, I got to know, it was actually, again, due to Glengarry Glen Ross where I got to know him. So it was 1984. The show was going to open on Broadway. And what had happened is one of the actors in the show, J.T. Walsh, he came to the theater one day and he says, you'll never know who I double dated with last night. I said, who? He goes, Tony Bennett. He says, he's dating the aunt of my girlfriend. And I was like, and I'd loved Tony Bennett all my life, just as I'd loved Johnny Mathis. and Ringo and the Beatles. I said, Tony Bennett, you actually double dated with him? He said, yeah. I said, we'll offer him tickets. I'll give him my house seats if he wants to see the play, Glengarry. So of course he did. He asked him. Tony accepted, came to the play. We went out to dinner afterwards with him and my wife. It started this, lifelong friendship to this day. But I'll tell you the one funny anecdote about this. When he first came in my dressing room after the play, I took the picture, just like the one here. This picture was done much later. This was just fairly current. But I took the same kind of picture with him in my dressing room in 1984. A few months later, I win the Tony Award for that show. And what I did is I sent thank you cards to all these people who had responded and sent me like telegrams and voicemails, on an answering machine, congratulating me for winning the award. And what I sent them was a little thank you card that it's folded. So on the front of the card, it says, thank you so much for, calling and sending telegrams and whatever for me. I says, I thought you'd like a picture of me with my Tony. And of course, they figure they're going to open it up and it's going to be a picture of me holding the Tony Award. But when you open it up, I'm standing there with my arm around Tony Bennett. And anybody who knew me well, they understood. And Tony himself, I sent, of course, one to him, and he loved it. He put that up on his refrigerator.
Here's someone else, give us a little story,
Right.
Reader's Digest version of Uncle Willie and the voice.
Right. Well, again, Godfather 3 had just opened in Christmas at 1990. And in February of 91, a couple months later, the movie was still running around the country. The Simpsons decided to create this character called Fat Tony, who was kind of like this mob kind of character. And they thought, well, Joe Mantegna might be a good choice to be this character because he's in this, at the time, this movie, Godfather 3, playing the lead gangster in it. This is a good fit. So this was only the Simpsons' third season. And so I come in and I'm thinking, oh, I read the script. I watched some of their episodes. I thought it was very cute. It's not just a kid cartoon show. It's a very smart, obviously it's been on now for 35 years or something. So I went in, but I thought to myself, I don't want to sound like Joey Zaza. I don't want to sound like this character that's in the movies that's playing right now. I said, that's not right. I mean, I can't do that same character. So then I thought of myself, I thought my dear Uncle Willie, who I was so very close to, due to, he had a battle of throat cancer, which he beat many years before, but one thing it left him with a voice that talked like this. And that's the way that Uncle Willie talked. So I thought to myself, let me just try doing the character with this voice. And if Matt Groening and the people who are directing this episode, if they don't say anything, maybe they'll let it go. So I start doing a character like this voice. Nobody says anything. So I go, all right, I guess that's it. Well, then turns out a few months later, they said, oh, would you do another episode? Oh, would you do another episode? Well, now it's my longest running character. I've been doing that character now for since 1991. So 31 years I've been playing this character. I base it on my Uncle Willie, and I actually brought him to one of the recording sessions, like maybe year 15 or 16. And I said, hey, Willie, say hello to everybody. And of course, as soon as he opened his mouth, he went, that's the guy, that's the guy, Joe.
Joey, I'm going to skip a few slides to leave some time. We had over 100 people on Zoom and 50 in the audience, which is amazing for a Zoom. I want to end with this slide because, I'm speaking for Mom as well here. Joey is loved by the set designers, the drivers, and the workers behind the scenes. Being a good person trumps being a great actor. Everybody can be a good person. So I'm just going to end with that. And Joey, thank you. I have questions. I don't see any questions there is one question I'm going to ask that came from Zoom, and there'll be others. And then we're going to turn it over to the audience and see what questions come there. But the question in Zoom that I saw, and there may be others, is I loved you in the play. Let me read the chat, and who said it. Sybil saying, I loved him in Alice. Can he talk about that film?
Yeah, that was wonderful. That was I did 2 films for Woody Allen, and that was the first one. And it really was a lovely film at the time. I mean, obviously Woody Allen's relationship to Mia Farrow, kind of went south after that. But at the time, that script, I thought it was, if anybody who sees the movie, it's really an homage to her, because that character was pretty much, I felt in many ways based on who Mia Farrow was. She almost, the fact that at the very end, she almost like a Mother Teresa character. She really did that, had that kind of compassion. She had this large family, kids and stuff like that. And it's a very sweet movie. I mean, I just thought it was, I really enjoyed it. And I purposely made that character an Italian American, by the way, which I've done throughout my career. And I do it in a way to balance off characters like Joey Zaza or Fat Tony, things like that. In other words, it's been my goal that every time, because I have no qualms playing, gangsters and stuff like that. And it doesn't matter what their ethnicity is. If they're Italian, that's fine. I mean, let's face it, there were Italian gangsters. But on the other hand, I purposely made that character an Allison Italian American. When I did Joan of Arcadia, I made that character an Italian American. When I did First Monday and played a member of the Supreme Court, as you know, I named that character after our grandfather. And currently on Criminal Minds, for now my 14th year, I picked the name David Rossi, who was a real Los Angeles policeman that I got the name from, who I knew. And so I wanted to just show that, to balance the scales in a way that ethnicity has nothing to do with, what a person, who shouldn't define what a nationality of people are, whether you're Italian, Irish, Jewish, Black, white, whatever it may be.
I'm going to turn it over to Arnie and see if there are any questions for you, Joey. But this has been great. I want to thank you. But you're a good guy, and that's
you're a good guy too, Ronnie. Listen, what's been left unsaid is because our father passed away, was always in ill health. You were such a huge part of bringing me up. I mean, you were more, you're 8 years older than I am. So you were more than a brother. You took a lot of those duties of a father figure in many ways. You're the guy that taught me how to tell time. You're the guy that turned me on to read books when I was 12 years old of novels or Greek classics and stuff like that. You're the guy that turned me on to jazz music. So I mean, you've been a big part of it, and just you know that. So I love you to death.
I appreciate that, Joey. But let's go, Arnie. See if there are any questions. Hopefully they're so riveted with what you had to say that they just can't think of anything. Go ahead, guys.
Hi, Joe. This is Bob Dauber. And
yeah, hi, Bob.
How you doing? I was reminded by Facebook this morning that it was 10 years ago today that I made a presentation here at the Senior Center of a book that I co-authored called Chicago's Classic Restaurants. And you did one of the best interviews that I got for that book. And you told me the story about you and Peter Falk at the Pump Room.
Right.
Yeah. So, and just, my favorite oxymoron is that the world grows increasingly smaller every day. Your brother Ron and I go back almost 60 years. And here you are. And I can just say to both of you, you're both great guys. Good.
Thank you. You know what, bringing up Peter Falk and restaurant, let me just tell you this quick anecdote because I think you'll all enjoy it and it's funny. Peter and I were in San Francisco. We're doing the play, Glengarry on tour. And Peter says, let's go to this restaurant. I know the chef there used to be the chef at the White House for Kennedy. And he had opened this restaurant in San Francisco. So we go to the restaurant and it's a French guy who owned it. And he comes and talks to us at the dinner. And so I asked him, I said, what was it like to be the chef for Kennedy? He goes, oh, it was fantastic. We make it, Jacqueline and John Kennedy to make the lovely dinners. And I said, well, what happened after Kennedy was assassinated? Did you stay on at the White House? And he says, yes, Lyndon Johnson, he kept us on for a short time out of respect. And I said, well, what was it like cooking for Lyndon? He goes, oh, very different, very different. All they ever wanted to eat was barbecue, barbecue, barbecue. And he says, when you wear the white gloves at the state dinners, it's not good to always have barbecue. So I thought that was a pretty funny story.
Hi, Joe. This is Steve Brenner. I have a comment and a question. And first of all, I want to thank you and Ron for arranging this and giving up your time. My comment is your portrayal of Dean Martin in the HBO film, I thought was put him in a very positive light. And I know I looked at Dean Martin in a different way after seeing that movie. So I thought it was terrific. My question is, do you still have the wonderful ice cream suit?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I did that play in Chicago back in, well, I think it was 1972. We did the play and it was very successful. And then we even did it we toured California with a little bit, and we even did a couple places in Europe. But then 25 years later, we were finally able to make the movie. And the best thing about that was just getting to know Ray Bradbury. Because, Ray Bradbury saw when we initially did it in Chicago and at the Organic Theater. And then when we made the movie, he was still around, and he came to the set and to work with Sid Caesar and Howie Morris, and also to have Ray there. I'm just so fortunate that 25 years later, I was able to, relive that role I'd done in Chicago theater, make the movie. And it's still one of my favorite films I've ever done. And Ray feels, he said this, he said it was the most, because, this is the guy who wrote Moby Dick and, Martian Chronicles and all that. He said it was his most favorite movie of anything he'd ever written. It was Wonderful Ice Cream Suit, because it's such a sweet film. And I know I think I had him autograph something for you, Ron, because again, you turned me on to Ray Bradbury back when I was a kid with his.
He signed the script. It was wonderful.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Hi, my name is Zach Ulrich. I'm a therapist in the Bay Area, and I grew up in Chicago. My dad, hi, Mr. Mantegna, both of you, Mr. Mantegna, thanks for today. And my dad took us all the way downtown when we were kids to see all your movies in the Fine Art Theater and a bunch of your plays. I was thrilled to see you doing a role that you're currently doing in As We See It, which is about young people with autism. I work with a ton of people in the Bay Area in their 20s and 30s. And you couldn't have had a more accurate depiction of the entire story of their families. And I was actually excited to be in town, and I thought I was going to get to meet you today. I was going to talk your ear off about it, but please tell a little bit. It's the best depiction of autism I've ever seen. Period.
And it's wonderful from those of us, just let me add, Joey, those of us who don't have autism or have families with it other than Mia, just as the drama that it presented and the view that it gave, how accurate was it? I want to second what she just said.
Well, it was tremendous. That's why I did it. When I first read the script, I was so taken by it. It was created by Jason Katims. This is the same guy who did Friday Night Lights and Parenthood, and he has a son with autism. And so, he was trying to depict it as best as he can, being the brilliant writer that he is, and he did it. When I first read, they sent me the script to play the father of the young man, the one young man character. I was so taken by it. I said to him, I says, yes, absolutely. I have to do this project. And they went above and beyond that, because as you may or may not know, the three lead characters, the three young adults who are supposedly on the autistic on the spectrum really were on the spectrum. And so not only in terms of the actors being on the autism spectrum, they hired 12 people on the crew. So here we are, and this is big time regular Hollywood TV production. We're shooting up at Universal Studios, and we've got 12 people on our crew who are all on the spectrum, and they had a person from a group called the Miracle Project acting as a liaison for them, so that everything would be, in case they had any questions or things or concerns, and everything just ran so smoothly. So we were only able to do 8 episodes. Unfortunately, Amazon Prime decided not to continue on further with the show, which I think was a mistake. But regardless of that, we did the 8 episodes we did, and I'm very proud of it, and will always remain as one of the most favorite things I've ever done in my career.
I'll second that.
Hi, Joe. I recall, what year was it that you did was it at Hull House Theater where you did the Bleacher Bums?
Bleacher Bums, yeah, that was 1977 at the Beacon Street Hull House. That was an idea I had come up with, because I used to sit up in the bleachers at Wrigley Field and think to myself, because here I was like a young actor, and I would think, look, they got 35,000 people here to watch this team who at most is mediocre. I'm thinking, if I could just get 1/10 of these people into a play, we'll have a success. So what was going through my head is, what is this about fandom? What is this about following the underdog, following that team, regardless of how well they do? And that was the germination for the play Bleacher Bums. And when I presented it to the theater company as an idea I had for a play, they all responded. We all got together, we created it collectively, and they still do it today. I mean, I still get, royalty checks from, places around the country, even sometimes places around the world who do a production of it.
Well, about my wife and I saw you in that play in 1977. Is that the year? And
Yeah.
the chubby guy in the bleachers, who I think went on to Cheers. I don't remember his
No,
name.
Dennis Franz was played Zig, and he went on to NYPD Blue and many other things. So I think you're thinking of Dennis Franz. Oh, George Wendt. Now you're talking about George Wendt from Cheers. Now George did wind up playing Bleacher Bums as well, but he did a different production of it. He did it out here in Los Angeles for quite a while.
The man in the white suit was it at Hull House Theater?
Ice cream soup.
That too was there too. That was also done at the Beacon Street Leo Lerner Hull House in Uptown. That's right.
Always enjoyed your work, so keep it up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Let me pop in before another one from the audience. Lynn is asking, and I'll tag on to it, a two-parter. What character would you like to play now that you're a senior citizen? Okay. And my question would be, I know you love acting, and I know the way you got the role in Glengarry Glen Ross was because you were an actor, not a movie star. That the initial run was tried with De Niro, and De Niro couldn't take doing this continually and being perfect every time. He wants perfection, so he'll want 11 takes to do the movie, but not every night and twice on 1 week, 1 day. So he can't do it. Would you ever want to go back, not just being a senior citizen, but do something on Broadway again if the right role came up, or is that past?
Well, no, you never say never. I mean, but yet, that's a whole other lifestyle. I mean, it would be relocating, going to New York, which, but I would never say never. It's funny you mentioned that because Patti LuPone was one of my dearest friends who just closed the show Company in New York. We just had dinner with her 2 nights ago out here. We're about close to the same age, and she was even saying this might be my last Broadway show because it's such a tough thing, 8 shows a week, and it's just the physicality of it that you need, and the stamina and this, that, and the other. But I could see, I don't know, I can't say for sure whether I would or I wouldn't. But
what about roles for seniors now that you're joining us?
Well, I'm the senior on Criminal Minds. There's no mistaking that. I mean, they call me Papa Joe on the set, stuff like that. But that's the good thing about my profession. You can be in it as a 2-year-old. You can be in it as a 102-year-old. I mean, there's no. It's not like being an athlete where you have a time frame where you
maybe more so for men than for women. I think it may be sexist in that regard. How do you feel?
Well, I think it's changing somewhat. Again, like I think my dear friend Jean Smart is a good example of it. Like she's gotten tremendous success, especially lately. But it's true. I mean, it's almost historical that they tend to, there's not as many great roles for the older women actresses as there are for the older men actors. But I hopefully I think that's changing somewhat now. In our show right now, the 6 of us on the show, 4 of them are women, and 2 of them, and just myself and Adam Rodriguez are the 2 lead men. Right. So it's actually a female heavy kind of cast right now.
Joey, we're going to need to wind up. I want to see if is there anything else from the auditorium? Okay, listen, Joe, I'm going to turn it back. Love you, brother. You're a good guy, and you happen to be an actor, so that's okay.
Yeah, there you go.
Mom
it's my pleasure.
Proud. She was proud of both of us.
No, thanks very much. I think one of the blessings I had is that she lived, as you know, as they all may know, she lived to be 101, and I'm not sure she really quite knew what I did for a living, and I think that's good. I think that made it special.
And you
I
dress well.
thank you all. Okay. My love to everybody there. You know, in my heart, I'm still in Chicago. You got it. Take care.
Well, Ron, this is
Bye-bye,
about to wrap it up. Thank you guys both.
Bye-bye.
This has been a fantastic session. I hope we can do it again.